A few weeks ago, I had an interesting thought. A Minecraft world is massive. In fact, its length from one world border to the direct opposite world border is greater than the circumference of the Earth. It's so big that even the oldest of worlds only have generated a minuscule percentage of Minecraft blocks and chunks. And then I had that interesting thought. Theoretically, how long would it take to fill an entire Minecraft world? Filling the entire possible area of a Minecraft world with blocks. Now, obviously, this would be an indescribably difficult task that really could never be accomplished. But if somebody was to attempt to do it, theoretically, how would they go about doing so, and how long would it take? And that's precisely what we're going to figure out in this video. How long would it take to fill an entire Minecraft world with blocks? So, without further ado, let's begin. Oh, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, it really helps me out. Alright, so if we're going to try to figure out how long it would take to fill a Minecraft world, we first need to figure out how big the world is, and how many potential blocks it could contain. First of all, the world border. As many of you would know, Minecraft has a world border which surrounds it on all sides, preventing players from leaving or building beyond that. The world border is 29,999,983 blocks in each direction from the center of a world, or 0, 0. That means if we look at a Minecraft world from a bird's eye point of view, each side length would be 59,999,966 blocks. But Minecraft isn't a two-dimensional game. We also have to take into account the height of a world and its build limits. Now, I know these height values in the Minecraft build limit will be changing in 1.18, but currently, as of the latest version of the game, the build limit is 256 blocks. That means a Minecraft world has a block height of 256. Anyways, using the simple formula for volume of length multiplied by width multiplied by height, we can calculate exactly how many blocks can be placed in a Minecraft world. Doing so gave this number, 9.2 times 10 to the power of 17. This format is called scientific notation, and is used when numbers are so large that they would be unreasonable or annoying to write out. Converting the number from scientific notation gives this number. 921,598,555,520,295,900. A number so big, I needed a website to tell me how to pronounce it. So an entire Minecraft world can contain 921 quadrillion blocks. How long would it take to place that many? Well, to find out, I decided to conduct a small experiment. Minecraft chunks are used to subdivide the world into smaller 16 by 16 areas. I was going to fill an entire chunk with blocks and time myself to see how long it would take, but this would take a long time, and in science, you should always repeat a trial to ensure the results are valid and reliable. So instead, I decided to time myself filling only 4 wire levels of a chunk, by repeating the experiment 10 times. I would then take the average time I got from the 10 trials and multiply it by 64, to get a rough time it would take to fill an entire Minecraft chunk with blocks. Anyways, adding all these times up and dividing by 10 gave an average time of 271.4 seconds, or 4 minutes and 31 seconds. Since it took 271.4 seconds to fill a chunk up to 4 wire levels, we can multiply that value by 64 to include the rest of the chunk. This gave a result of 17,369.6 seconds, or 289 minutes and 29 seconds. That means that to fill an entire Minecraft chunk with blocks from Y level 0 all the way up to Y level 256, it would take 4.8 hours, or roughly 4 hours and 48 minutes. There are roughly 14 trillion Minecraft chunks in an entire world, so multiplying 4.8 hours by that number gives you a grand total time of 67,499,991,000,000 hours, or roughly 7.7 billion years. 7.7 billion years to fill an entire Minecraft world with blocks, one by one. But you see, there is an issue. Minecraft worlds aren't just empty voids with nothing in the way, they already contain blocks in the vast terrain. And this is a good thing, but also a very bad thing. While yes, having terrain already generated will relieve you of a significant chunk of the blocks that would need to be placed, but it also creates a big problem. Minecraft's terrain isn't solid. There are millions upon millions of caves underground with empty spaces in them. That means that if you're going to attempt the task of filling an entire Minecraft world with blocks on a normal world, you wouldn't be just able to place blocks on top of the already existing terrain and call it a day. You would have to go underground and fill in the caves as well. This would theoretically be such a painstaking task, but even more annoying is that it's going to make our calculations much harder. With the vast amount of caves, I had to think of a method of roughly estimating how long it would take to fill in the blocks of each chunk, and luckily I found a way. WorldEdit has this cool command called Dister, which allows you to count how many blocks are in a selection, and it also displays how many air blocks there are. So, I went to a few unique biomes and got samples of a chunk and how many blocks were missing. A chunk in a plains biome had 49,130 air blocks, which was about 74.97% of the chunk, as well as 552 air blocks within caves, making up 0.84% of the chunk. A chunk from a mountain biome had 33,552 air, roughly 51.2% of the chunk, as well as 1,024 cave air blocks, or roughly 1.56% of the chunk. I did this sample for a few other biomes which have differing or more extreme terrain, such as jungle, mesa, deep ocean, and shattered savanna. Now that I had some rough samples of a variety of chunks of differing sizes, I could average out how many air blocks each chunk had. Adding up all the total air blocks in the 6 chunks I sampled and dividing by 6 gave me an average air block number of 41,488. This means that roughly 63.3% of an average Minecraft chunk is air. Therefore, it would take around 3.03 hours to completely fill an average Minecraft chunk with blocks. Multiply that by the total number of chunks in a Minecraft world, and we have our grand total of 42,731,317,544,677 hours to fill an entire Minecraft world. That's roughly 4.8 billion years to fill an entire normal Minecraft world with blocks. Alright, so we now know how long it would take to fill an entire Minecraft world roughly, but let's say theoretically you're going to actually attempt to do this in survival mode. Things wouldn't be nearly as smooth as my calculations suggest. In our calculations, we assume you would have an infinite amount of blocks, clear access to the areas such as caves where blocks need to be placed, and also an infinite amount of other resources that you would need in order to survive long enough to complete such a task. But once again, theoretically, if you were to do this in survival, it wouldn't be as plain and simple. First and foremost, where are you even going to get all the blocks? You can't just set up a Haste 2 beacon and go ham underground for a few hours, because that all needs to be filled in and you wouldn't get nearly enough blocks. You need to somehow create new blocks. 2 methods come to my mind that can be used to do this, and let's assume that you're going to be doing this legit, so no duping or super exploitative methods. First of all, you build an automatic tree farm and convert the wood into planks and use that to fill in the entire world. Second, and I think the better method, is to use an automatic cobblestone generator and use cobblestone. I found this relatively simple cobblestone generator design by Ilmango, which can produce roughly 120,000 cobblestone per hour. But if you were going to accomplish such a task, you would probably need much more. I found another design by a Chinese Minecrafter named XZZHHH on a strange Chinese website which looks very similar to YouTube. Fortunately, I found a re-uploaded and translated version on YouTube which stated that this cobblestone generator can generate and collect roughly 1.05 million cobblestone per hour with this insane design. That's roughly 25 million cobblestone per day, and since you are only placing about 65,536 blocks every 4.8 hours, you should have plenty with this design. Okay, what about some other resources? Well, if you're going to attempt such a task, I would assume you would have spent a couple dozen hours collecting resources beforehand. You would probably want an ender chest full of shulkers, and in those shulkers would be a few spare sets of armor, a few elytras to move around, a couple or so shulkers of firework rockets, and maybe another couple or so shulker boxes of food such as steak or golden carrots. A few shulkers of enchanted netherite tools couldn't hurt either. Then, all the remaining shulker boxes would hold the cobblestone you'll be using to fill in the world. Your inventory should also be entirely filled with shulker boxes containing cobblestone. In the grand scheme of things, getting a full ender chest of shulker boxes filled to the brim with resources shouldn't be that hard compared to the monumental task at hand. You would also probably want an XP farm. I recommend Ilmango's Donut in the Sky pigment farm, as you can AFK for XP to fix your tools and elytras, and also some form of creeper farm so you would have a constant source of gunpowder. A sugarcane farm would be important too, so you can use that gunpowder to make firework rockets. You won't be flying around as much as you will be placing blocks, so a simple farm design should suffice. As for food, well, you could make a simple cow farm for steak, or make a villager powered farm that automatically collects carrots and use the gold from the gold farm to make golden carrots. You don't actually use that much food though, because you aren't sprinting much, just slowly walking around in circles placing blocks and jumping occasionally. In fact, when I did my 10 trials earlier, I only ate 1 steak the entire time. Mobs might be a small issue, but you can just carry around the bed and sleep away every night, so it shouldn't be a problem. and making your Minecraft Fullbright in the game's config folders will alleviate the need for torches to see in certain areas. So, that should tick all the boxes for resources and requirements to complete this task, but we still have two major issues. First of all, oceans and caves. Doors can solve the issue of oceans, as you can just place them and use them as an air pocket, as water breathing potions aren't nearly renewable enough to be used for this monumental task, as you would run out super quickly. But caves, well, there's no best method here. Finding and ensuring you have filled in all caves would be so tough, and I think the only way to ensure you haven't missed any is to use spectator mode, or some form of X-ray glitch that lets you check underground. I honestly think that the caves would slow you down so much that it would actually take longer to fill in a normal world than a void world, but it's impossible to calculate how long that would take exactly. The final issue is moving around the world, and getting more cobblestone when you eventually run out in your ender chest and inventory. While this wouldn't be an issue for any human who attempted to do this, as it would likely die before getting out far enough, where it would take a lot of time to travel to and from the cobblestone generator, theoretically, if you got out into the hundreds of thousands or even millions, there would be problems. And Elytra can only fly out to the hundreds of thousands so fast, so maybe the best method would be to use a nether roof and portals to get around. Either way, the further you get out, the more troubling the issue will get. So, just keep in mind, many of the calculations we have done today are very rough and are based on a limited sample of data, so this is more an approximation than anything. Nevertheless, it's still super interesting to conduct this little experiment. One final note which is interesting is that since it would take around 7.7 billion years to fill in a void world, if every human on the planet dedicated 1 year of their life to doing so on the same Minecraft server, this task might be accomplishable. But getting every human to do that would be impossible. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to subscribe and join the Discord, as well as follow me on Twitter. Let me know if you like this kind of theoretical experiment video, as I may do more in the future. Thank you all so much for watching.